So welcome Sunbeam to the show where we dwell deep into mind of people who shape our day-to-day life. Welcome to the Voice of Sunbeam podcast. Today we have the honor to have Assistant Director of Sunbeam Group of Educational Institution, Ms. Pratima Gupta. Ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
And I would love to know how you feel about the show itself, the podcast, first of all.
Oh well, to be very honest, a trifle daunted because whenever you are talking to the students, you are excited. You are always wondering what is going to come your way. So yeah, I'm kind of excited, a little nervous about all the curveballs that you are going to throw towards me, and let's see. But I know it is going to be an extremely fulfilling experience.
Thank you, ma'am, and we will try to keep on with it. Okay, ma'am, so certainly we decided a topic which we want the podcast to be themed upon. So it was women empowerment and leadership. So speaking about women empowerment and in front lady like you, who has been a very successful in their life. I read your biodata on the Sunbeam site. You have achieved a lot. You did your B.Ed in English literature, I think, and BA. Sorry, my mistake. So BA in English literature, and further went for psychology, and then you worked as a freelancer psychologist and everything. I went through it, and I was very astonished to see how much you have progressed, and you are assistant director of Sunbeam Group of Educational Institution. So coming to the point, ma'am, how do you feel running an institution like Sunbeam is? Is it stressful or how it is?
Well, to quote the most cliched sentence, which perhaps everyone who is sitting or anyone who is sitting in the hot seat and when asked about stress is that there is positive stress and there is negative stress. So positive stress is a stress which helps you to propel forward, and any position of, I would not say authority, I would say any position of public service, and that is how I see this profession also is. That it's more of a service than a profession. So any position of executing public service comes with its inherent strains of people management, of working in adverse and challenging conditions. So I would say that stress over the years has propelled me to become adept at handling things. Stress has also made me check at times if I sort of stray away from deadlines, or at times, as it so happens with human beings, that you tend to get a little lost in the nature of doing the work. So stress helps to put you back. It's kind of the compass that helps you to adhere to your goals, to your objectives. So I would not say I welcome stress, but I look at it as a propellant of a way forward.
Okay, ma'am, I just wanted to know this out of my curiosity.
Sure.
So, ma'am, when we hear the word women empowerment, and certainly with this word a new term comes up, feminism. So, with feminism, initially it was introduced for equal rights for men and women. But recently we have seen a new thing coming up called pseudo feminism, or a term which I use, pseudo feminism time, which only doesn't speak about equal rights, but speaks about right only for women, or specifically lying for it. So, ma'am, what's your take on this? Because this thing is a bit toxic according to me.
It is very toxic. I have in fact found these slanted references towards the rara hoisting up of a flag. Whether you're walking with the flag of feminism or you're walking with the flag of empowerment and all, wherever it comes to the male-female equity issue, I tend to get a little riled, very honestly, because I feel if civilizations have developed across the passage of years to this level, why are we still looking at people and sort of tagging and branding them into physiological compartments? Why is it necessary for a woman or a man to adhere to a stereotypical interpretation of their gender roles? And why can't all our collective emancipation of a society take us to the individual rather than the man, the women? And in today's times and in the years to come ahead also, gender cannot be your only claim to identity. Gender is just the mold in which the physiological aspect of it, the physical aspect of it, is just the mold in which you have been cast by birth. So honestly, feminism, pseudo feminism, at times I feel that in the world of social media, recognition, it has just become another means of garnering attention, wherein we sort of pretend to have certain facades which gets us perhaps more likes on our Insta accounts, or it makes us appear cool, or we are a very with it kind of a person. And scratch the surface, you will perhaps not find a kind of substance, which identifies your stance with that of conviction. So I feel that it is overrated at times. It is more of a socially generated pressure of the need to conform to the A-listed group and so on and so forth, where it really makes a dent upon my consciousness is when the talk is about the celebration of the individual and individuality. And that can be in any garb, You're talking about males, you're talking about females. The right of the individual to be recognized as an individual, I think for me that is paramount, rather than placing it under the banner of a feminism or a pseudo feminism or whatever you want to call it.
I do agree with what you said, but ma'am, don't you feel sometimes getting into the extremist side of these things leads to something what I term has this kind of toxicity happening in the society? Like for example, recently we saw multiple cases in court lying around speaking for men's right, but there were certain groups which were constantly saying, men were having hierarchy previously in the history itself, and now they don't need any rights. The actual argument is they don't need rights. The person who needs to be protected is us. This was the argument given by the side of the group specifically, citing the women. So this was a case which I read. I am not able to remember the exact quotations, so I won't go further with it. I think we will have to cut a bit here. I'm really sorry.
Gather your thoughts.
I'm sorry, I never mess up like this, but
It's not a mess up, probably you are thinking it through in your head. So complete the thought, we'll come back to it.
okay. We will just skip this one and
Sure.
come down.
Ma'am, to make this podcast a more open conversation, we see a lady before us as Pratima Gupta today. So what was your journey as a girl to becoming this today? What hardships you went through and everything?
My journey, I would say I was a blessed person because I had an extremely enriching childhood. There was a multiplicity of experiences of every kind, and I won't say hardships as such, because I feel that your true character emerges only when you confront certain challenges or adversities. But yes, there have been life events which have left a deep impact upon me, and as I love saying, I am what I am because and in spite of it, So I would say that growing up as a child, the first coherent conscious memory, and which is the plinth of everything that I hold sacred to myself as my belief in humanity, is ducking for cover in a bunker in the 71 war, being led by my mother. My father was an army officer. He was posted at Jalandhar at Surana Sea camp during the 71 war, and he was also heading an ammunition depot. So there were enemy fighter planes screaming overhead, and as a 4-year-old, there was a bunker which was dug in our house, and when the siren used to go off, my mother would grab the hand of my hand and my younger sister's hand and rush to the bunker, and my father was away at the front supplying ammunition to the Firozpur border where the war was really raging. So hiding there, not knowing, in anticipation of bombs being dropped, hearing bombs dropped, hearing the screech, and believe me, I was 4.5, and I can still identify in my mind's corridors the screech of a fighter plane when it went overhead in the dead of the night, and clutching your mother's hand, and the horror of it, or seeing the coffins come in from the troops train where we went to receive, as families, we were there, or seeing the bombed out parts of areas, where we were staying. I think that is my first consciously registered impact of what crime against humanity means, So it was not a hardship, but it was a window to what you should never allow human beings to do to each other. And that led me later on to, of course, move towards reading a lot, towards understanding human behavior. And then when I took up my master's in social work, I worked in slums. As a part of the program, I worked in slums. I worked in state-owned orphanages. I worked in the remand home for women. I worked in a house for rehabilitation center for juvenile delinquents, and I was exposed at that age to the horrific crimes that human beings commit against one another. So I won't call that a hardship, but again, that left a deep impact on me. So when I later pursued psychiatric social work in MPhil, I understood that I have to do everything in my power to ensure that whatever area of influence I can wield, I will see to it that I will make human beings treat each other with respect. I will try to iron out differences. I will help them understand and connect to the better part of themselves, and generally help people become more in equilibrium within themselves. So this is what, I wouldn't call it hardship as such, plus the fact that my father was in the army and we traveled from place to place, every 2 years we traveled, which gave me access to understanding the psyche of India. And I can never see this country into as Gujaratis or as Punjabis or anything, because I could relate to everyone, I could enjoy the cultural differences, revel in them. So I understood that you have to be open as a human being for acceptance and understanding. So when I came into education and when I took up this role, or whatever I am today, I am the sum total of these wonderful experiences, and they have given me the desire to give a better life to people around me. That's who I am.
It was very listen, ma'am. And ma'am, speaking that your father was in army, so then there was a question in the FAQs, which I'm going to state now itself, as there were 11, I've been deciding. So growing up in a family of an army man and everything, how was your life like? Like, was it very strict and disciplined and everything?
See, the army is not about, regimentation for the sake of regimentation. It is about regimentation in order to have a good quality of life, in order to be always prepared. Okay? So, yes, there were rules in the house. There were rules in the house. And that has taught me over the years to respect time. So, today, if I had an appointment with you at 9:30, I started from my house well in time. So the target was that if I am to start this podcast at 9:30, I have to be here by 9:50. So this is a habit which has been inculcated since childhood, that arrive a little early rather than being fashionably late, and respecting people, understanding and making way for differences. So in the army, what used to happen is that as a child, If there was probably Diwali, then we celebrated it together. If there was something to do with, say, Guru Purnima or Guru Purab, then we would all go to the Gurdwara together. We would be doing every kind of activity, regardless of the understanding that so and so is a Hindu or a Muslim or a Sikh or anything. So it made me impervious to putting people into brackets. So our life was wonderful, you know. We met all kinds of people, we enjoyed all kinds of cuisines, we just loved traveling, and there was no anxiety in terms of what next. There was always the excitement of, okay, where do we go next? But yes, there was always a very strict code of conduct, politeness, respecting people's privacy. You don't suddenly, and at times in civilian life, it made me very difficult at times to understand that how could people just walk into your house, you know, without prior information. Because in the army, the calling on time for someone was prior information. We always between 7:30 in the evening to about 8:30. And unless you have specified that you're going to stay for dinner, you just don't casually stay over for dinner. If you've come only for, say, a meet and greet, and you just do that and you go back home. So respecting people's times, arriving within the stipulated time, exiting within the stipulated time, not overstaying your welcome, being extremely well-groomed, being proper. So, you know, if you're going for an afternoon lunch, how do you dress up? If you're going for an evening celebration, how do you dress up? Yeah, this was a way of life. There were rules, and we did respect rules.
Okay, so we can say that the army life which you led to the leadership skills you have now. Can we?
In terms of, yes, how do you tell people to be in a certain way, and how do you facilitate that, you know? And I saw my father, the way he commanded his troops. He was a dearly loved person, and how did he treat his troops with the kind of deference and respect, and how his soldiers kind of looked up to him, how his subordinates looked up to him, how he commanded respect, and yet he was everyone's go-to also. You know, there were no barriers when people wanted to reach out to him. So yes, one did see examples of it. You heard stories of bravery in day-to-day life, and therefore you kind of felt that courage, resilience, these are the qualities which sometimes people have to work hard to inculcate. But for us, they were all around us. So one just unconsciously imbibed them till it became a way of life.
So speaking about leadership skills which you have, I wanted to ask you, what are the leadership skills which you look out for? Like see in people, when you see a person, you say, he or she can be a leader. What are the specific qualities you see in them?
First of all, it has to be the ability to listen. I personally feel that as a leader, you must have the ability to listen, and you must intuitively know when to keep quiet. Even when you have the answers, you know, you have to keep quiet, and you have to let the answer come from the other person. You have to be a facilitator, and you cannot be just a solution provider. Sometimes people revel in the fact that, XYZ has all the solutions. But when XYZ is giving the solutions all the time, there will be only codependence. You will never have leaders emerging under that person. You will always have followers, you will always have people who will look at you. So listening, keeping your thoughts to yourself, allowing people to speak, that is, I think, the greatest skill a leader has to have. And then being practical. It's very, very important to be in equilibrium whenever the heat goes up, you know. If you're the kind of leader who loses his or her cool and gets flabbergasted, gets nervous, gets agitated, starts throwing tantrums and upping the stress level, so to say, then you kind of project it, displace it to everyone, and it's a domino effect, you know. Everyone, right down to the last person, is nervous and is edgy and stressed and so on and so forth. So a leader has to be an extremely practical and objective person. So it's like, okay, you know. So it's like there was this little thing where the general goes out and says, and his subordinate says, they have a huge army, we can see that, and we are so few. And then the general looks at him and says, yeah, but they can't see that. Right? So, as a leader, you have to have that kind of an inner steel within you, that when the hardship rises, that is when your calm also rises with you. So yes, you have to be practical, objective, you have to be a great listener, and sometimes you have to be this risk taker. You just says, we are doing this. And that's kind of something which, pumps the adrenaline in your subordinates, where they say, it's not doable. So you say, hang the consequences. We are doing this. So these are the three things which I feel a leader ought to have.
Speaking of these qualities, I had another question. What role does creativity play in leadership?
Creativity helps to instill an atmosphere of innovations. Replication of a set pattern turns into a drudgery, turns into a monotony. And the best performing teams also, after some time, because of incessant replication, tend to have a burnout, tend to have a loss of interest. So creativity in a leader, and a leader who fosters creativity, always keeps the excitement quotient in the team alive. If it is very necessary to conform also, see, there are certain practices, there are certain processes, especially when you are talking about organizational leadership, there are certain practices and processes that one does not mess around with. You cannot tweak everything, you cannot innovate every time. Some practices and processes have to be sacrosanct to the organization, because that is also a part of your ethos and your culture. But as a leader, if you do not sort of create an atmosphere where people are free to innovate, where people are challenging themselves continuously, not for the sake of one-upmanship, but for the sake of feeling good about what they are doing in their respective roles also. So that also creates high-performing teams. Creativity creates or leads to high-performing teams. So when you will see high-performing teams, they do the basics absolutely perfectly. But with the basics in place, they are constantly innovating, they are constantly strategizing. So that is the role creativity plays in leadership. As a leader, if you are thinking, if you are pushing the envelope, if you are talking about, let's do something great, let's do something wonderful, let's do something different, or how can we better this little thing, then the people around you are also thinking on the same line. So together as a collective unit, you become a massive force to reckon with, And every time when people walk into your organization, they are like, what's new, what's happening? And there's a wonderful energy in the entire organization, because everyone is doing something different, new, and not getting jaded with the same old.
Ma'am, talking about the things, you talked about the crimes against humanity. So the case that happened in Afghanistan when Taliban came, or in Poland when Russia invaded, or even in Palestine right now, we saw that the dying people are mostly confined to women and children. I recently went to a suburban place in our locality, and I talked to the women who were working as housewives, and even like sisters who are looking after the younger brothers and sisters. They were kept in home, not allowed to go to school, because they have this mentality that it is of no use. So what kind of psyche do they need to develop? Because we as Sunbeams, or as a civilized society, we know that women empowerment is very important. So what psyche do they need to develop, and what can we help them do?
So since times immemorial, I think ever since the dawn of civilization, This has been, or even if you see in the less evolved species or in the animal kingdom also, it has always always been the fight between the oppressor and the oppressed. Who do you prey upon? You prey upon that which is like of lesser strength, or you prey upon people, or you prey upon a being who is not capable of defending themselves either physically or emotionally, and they are the victims. So women, children are soft targets since times immemorial. Crime against women, and women also sort of plundering and looting and abducting women as spoils of war has been something which has been happening. So it's not just in today's times. Let us not just talk about the women. Let us talk about how do you sort of exploit anyone who is weaker than you, and how do you help people get out of the mindset of helplessness. How do you help people to overcome this thing about I do not have the locus of control within myself, but someone else pulls my strings. Yes, situations can be like that. Situations are like that. I would not generalize it to the extent and give a very, give a platitude saying that, oh, it is all within yourself. Sometimes it is not within yourself. But as people who are working to help people, what we have to do is to create a mindset of not just overcoming adversities, but coming up with inner resilience. So what you have to do to these people is to open their minds to possibilities. So if there is a woman, if there is a girl child, or if there is a person who is a victim of circumstances, the first thing you have to do is to help them realize their own potential. What is it that you can do? So we've heard of people being in prisons. There are prisoners of war who have been actually tortured, who have come back out of those torture chambers with their minds intact. We've heard of people being in prison but exercising. We've heard of people being in very, very adverse situations but coming out of it. How do they come out of it? They come out of it because of their sheer will. So you have to first help them to understand that it is a situation, definitely overpowering, but it can be overcome. You have to have the will to overcome. Help them connect with their inner self. Help them to dwell upon what are the positives which are still inherent to them in spite of the adversity of the situation around them. Work on a positive mindset. Work upon the power of the will. And then look at the resources and opportunities around them. So you cannot say that I cannot do anything. In today's day and age, honestly, no one says that I am not able to do anything. If you are not able to do anything, it is because you haven't honestly explored all the possibilities. So empower people to think of themselves, empower people to be selfish about their happiness, about their achievements, about their goals, and that will give them the sheer power to overcome the situations, and come out of them stronger. It is the will, it is the mind, it is the power of the I within me which helps you to ace situations. And that's what we have to do.
Speaking of these things, ma'am, I wanted to ask you one more question, which has been going on in the society quite recently. A new term has come up called toxic masculinity. There are certain influencers, I would name them, for example, Andrew Tate is a prominent one, who has been portraying men as something which they are not, like something very Superman kind of thing, and demeaning the woman gender in general itself. Ma'am, in today's time, how do you feel these things affect the society?
See, I always feel that whenever we have these trends, or whenever we have these kind of waves coming up in society, they are propelled by a perceived threat. So if you see in the times that we are living in, the statistics of working women, the statistics of women in leadership positions, the statistics of self-employed women, the statistics of women being decision makers, equal decision makers in the homes have gone up. They definitely are better than what they used to be. Likewise, men are also succumbing to pressure. Men are no longer honestly put on a pedestal just because they are men. In certain pockets of the world, it does prevail. And we have a long way to go before we start looking at people as individuals rather than men, women. But there is a perceived threat of annihilation. And there is a perceived threat that, okay, we have to now fight for this godlike position that we had been given earlier. And more women are coming into positions of power, and women are being seen as the multitaskers. Earlier, men were like the providers, and I'm talking about stereotypical roles, And I would like to say that I'm not taking up the case for any gender specific as such, but talking in general as to the trends that have been very visible in society. So earlier the man was the provider, and that is all he used to do. I mean, you never had instances of men changing diapers, after they came back from a 9 to 5 job, and he was considered the breadwinner, and that was his sole claim to fame, and His Highness kind of status he had in the family. Vis-a-vis that, you have a woman who does a job, who's probably in a leadership position, who comes home and manages the house also, takes care of, in a very Indian kind of a setting, or not certain other places also, takes care of the man's elderly parents, also is a homemaker, is probably a CEO, or probably a teacher, or probably a pilot. So when this kind of a thing is happening, obviously there is the trend of opinionated women making a statement, and at times women taking on a very masculine sort of a persona, because till now, we have not really come to an age where a woman enjoys being a woman and yet performs all the tasks which were till now very, very stereotypically of men. So sometimes there is an over-the-top representation of these kind of successful women also, which perhaps is being perceived as a threat. Therefore, toxic masculinity, it is like, it is like a last-ditch stand of the male animal to say, okay, I am not annihilated yet, and I have this right to put you in your place, that kind of a thing, which is a fad, which is more of a reaction than anything else. And the intelligent people, and thank God, humanity across civilizations have always had these rational people in both the genders who have understood that, okay, we understand what the angst is all about. Whether it is the extreme call of the feminists who say down with men, or it is the call of the extreme hardcore, toxic masculinity people who say that, okay, these women are getting too much. There have always been voices of reason who have shown us a mirror and said, calm down. It's okay. We have to work together as people. So I feel these are little bubbles which keep on arising. They die their natural death. There are some people who get influenced by it. There are some people who take cognizance of it as a passing thing. And world moves on. Honestly, calm, rational, intelligent people are still working and still doing their work. Now you can hold up any crazy extremist flag, but if I am not buying, I am not buying.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely agreeable. And to be frank, I see this specific extremist ideology in students themselves in our schools, talking to me. Some of them, not all, absolutely take sides and speak on it. What I feel that social media plays a greater role in spreading hatred and things like this within the people themselves. Ma'am, what's your opinion on this? Like,
I so beg to differ. We have this tendency of ascribing great power of influence to everything which is outside of us. So, I mean, just to give you an example, a very, very, here today kind of an example. Animal was released, and there's a lot of rah-rah in the media about the toxic masculinity, so on and so forth, and how the youth is going to get, probably influenced, and they will be treating their spouses like this, and they will be treating their girlfriends like this, so on and so forth. But my submission is, if a movie like An Animal has the power to influence, then I wish to submit very humbly to all the detractors of social media that even Sam Bahadur was released. So if people, if there are going to be 30,000 animals walking on the streets, good Lord, why will not 60,000 Sam Bahadurs also walk on the streets? If that is the true power of the media, and if the social media is to be responsible for everything that is happening in society. So who decides? I now always say that it is your fingertip on the keypad. Who decides what you scroll through? Who decides how much do you follow it? Who decides what kind of a feed appears in your browsers,
Yes,
It is you. Why blame the social media for it? A man wrote something, another man acted it, they are doing it for their livelihood, they are doing it for the sake of entertainment. Who you identify with? I mean, if you look at the crime statistics against women, against children, against young boys, and for all wars that have happened to humankind, which animal was released? Did Hitler see any animal and then get charged about it that I have to have an army of people? No, we did it to ourselves. So it's a beautiful thing to always put the blame on someone else and always ascribe motives to some or the other external agency, which absolves me of the responsibility of being a change maker myself.
Absolutely.
What can I do? Children are watching social media, they are getting influenced. Well, we always had the Ramayana, we always had, the Bible, we always had the Quran, and we've had access to all these kind of religious scriptures, we've had messiahs, we've had all the good people. Collectively, they could wield an influence.
And
one little post.
Can.
And the entire world is in uproar and shrieking that, oh, the children will be influenced, or the people are influenced. Seriously, I strongly disbelieve it. I strongly disbelieve it, and I would say, stop taking the coward's way out of situation. I'm sorry, may sound strong to some, but stop absolving yourself of the responsibility to be a change maker and to be the person who can set things right. You are responsible for what you do, not some animal, not some Sam Bahadur, not some hashtag trend.
Really, ma'am. So, ma'am, further we are going to move with FAQs.
Yeah, sure.
But before that, I have one more question from you. Ma'am, if you had to give a message to the Sunbeam to get these qualities of leadership within themselves, what would your answer would be to them, like how to get the leadership skill within themselves and related to it?
I would say take initiative. Do not shy away from opportunities. Ever so often, especially in the growing up and the adolescent years, we ascribe too much of importance and meaning to what our friends will think, how I will be judged. There are always cliques and lobbies in school groups, children do that. In adult life, you learn to, navigate your way through these, but when you're an adolescent, when you're a young child, these things, the opinions of your friends matter a lot. To conform matters a lot. And therefore, sometimes we do not take the great chances and the great opportunities that come our way, and we miss out on positions of leaderships, on opportunities of leadership. So I think you have to be a risk taker. You have to be a little bit selfish about your own happiness and about your way forward. You have to stop thinking of how you will be judged and will it make your friend happy, or will it earn you brownie points in your little charmed circle of buddies if you are the teacher's pet, and will they really diss you for doing everything right all the time? And all this acquires so much of a mammoth importance that you start denying yourself the chances of being great and wonderful. So I would say cut yourself away from these things. Seize every opportunity that comes your way. If it does not, walk up to people and say. A lot of times we are bogged down with, I would be considered a little too forward if I go and walk up perhaps to my class teacher and say that, ma'am, I do stammer a lot and my pronunciation and accent is not good, but I dearly would want to be on the stage for this elocution piece. Do you think you can give me a chance? So sometimes your friends say, stop being so cute, why do you have to go and, act sweet with the teachers and so on and so forth. Don't let these things bog you down. create opportunities, knock on doors, break them down, the doors, I mean, when the opportunities don't come your way, just be at it,
Yes, ma'am.
and give yourself a chance to actually explore yourself. You do not know that you have the ability to be a great dancer, or you have the ability to be a great support voice in the choir, if not the main vocal lead. How would you know it unless and until you volunteer and you take a chance, So that's my message to the Sunbeams. You want to shine, you are a Sunbeam, you are destined to shine,
Yes, ma'am.
So you stop denying yourself the opportunities of your own greatness.
Absolutely, ma'am. Ma'am, and I believe Sunbeam is a great platform for people to get into activities and things like this. Like I myself believe there are activities going on in 365 days in the in Sunbeam itself. Ma'am, further coming up with the FAQs, these are questions asked by the students.
Alright.
So actually these were written down, so I had to take it out of my pocket. 1 second, ma'am. So coming up with the first one. Ma'am, what's your go-to place to eat junk food, if you do so?
Oh, my kitchen. I create most of it.
You don't never go.
It's not a never go-to kind of a thing, but probably if I were to, there's so many places now. I have great memories of chaat at Amritsar. So that would be junk food place. I have great memories of Sarafa in Indore. If I were to go, and I've been craving to go back, because Indore happens to be my hometown. So I've been craving to go back to Indore and really dive into the lanes of Sarafa and eat. And such little pockets of, because I'm a great foodie and I love food. So there are these great pockets, put all over the place in the country for me. But as of now, yes, I'm dying to go back to Sarafa to eat.
I recently went there.
You did? Yeah.
I was there.
Did you go to Sarafa?
Yeah, I went.
It's amazing.
Loved it.
I'm coming to the next question. Ma'am, sorry. I didn't even read the question that I was asking you. The question was, when you are in a chaos, so what's your place where you find peace? For example, when we had podcast with Principal Ma'am, she told us that BHU, Kashi Vishwanath or anywhere else.
So, I would love to go by myself, and because Banaras does not have a place like that, I usually go to the river, steps near the river at Shultankeshwar, and sit there in the evening quietly by myself, and that's one place which I like to be. And honest confession, during schoolwork, if I get really stressed and riled about something, then my go-to place is the KG section.
Why?
There's so much of unconditional love coming your way, in those smiles and those innocent conversations, and they don't really care whether you are an assistant director or principal or whatever. They just know that you are the stranger in their class or you are some known person, and they'll come up to you and give you so much of interesting tidbits of what is happening in their life. It's such a stress buster. I absolutely love talking to the kids in the KGs there.
Ma'am, what's your favorite movie if you like to see?
Oh my God, there are so many, so
The one
many.
you remember, like you can watch it hundreds of times if you have to.
Let me think. Oh no, there are so many movies that offhand, it is very difficult to think about one. But fine. Bridges of Madison County.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that n number of times. It has got Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep. It's a beautiful book. One of the books that have been really made into an equally great movie. So yes, I would love seeing Bridges of Madison County at any point of time, over and over again.
Any mischief which you have done as a child and you still remember it and laugh?
It was not a mischief. It was an innocuous question which I asked my biology teacher, which was misconstrued as a mischief. He was teaching us, this was in class 8 or 9 I believe, he was teaching us biology, he was teaching us something, and the thought just struck me and I raised a hand and blurted it out. I stood up and asked him something like, "Sir, why don't human beings have horns?" And to my mind at that point of time it was a very genuine question, and I asked it out of a genuine query, and the whole class broke into laughter, and he thought I was kind of riling him or making fun of him. He got furious, he ticked me off there and then, and he threw me out of the class. And to date, if Praful sir is watching this, at some point of time, I would like to seriously ask him, "Sir, why don't human beings have horns?" This was misconstrued as mischief,
It happened.
Yeah, and God, he got so riled about it because the whole class broke apart and they were like, "Ha ha ha." And this gentleman thought that I was acting too smart and he chucked me out of the class.
So
I haven't done any mischief as such, but yeah, this was one episode.
the next question was, were you a backbencher or a frontbencher when you were a student?
Depending upon the kind of activity that was happening in the classroom.
During the teaching hours.
Yeah, during the teaching hours, So English, I was right up there, and history, I was right up there. Hindi, I was right up there. Maths, I was like, I want to be invisible anyways. Yeah, I mean, it's all going above my head. So whichever bench you put me on, I would be looking out of the window because I seriously could not comprehend it. So yeah, but for certain activities, backbench is the best place to be.
Next question was related to the subject itself. Which is the subject you don't like to study? Even if you were given opportunity to, you have to study this and you would decline, meaning I don't want to study this specific subject.
So I was very phobic about maths. Because I was not good at it, and I met a teacher who really instilled that that aversion to mathematics in it. Thank God they don't have teachers like this anymore. They do. Yes, they do have teachers like that, and sometimes it leaves a scar so deep that you feel you're just not worthy enough of pursuing that subject. So maths was my nemesis as a child. And but now I seriously feel that given a chance, I do want to go back. I do want to try and understand that am I as incapable as I was made out to be, and is it seriously as challenging as it seemed then. So yeah, math is not something which I would necessarily gravitate to of my own volition, but out of curiosity to see that is it still as big an ogre as it was at that point of time, I would want to go back.
Ma'am, the final question was, what do you do in your leisure time? Like you have completed all your office work, which I believe it's very hard for you.
No, it's easy. It's very easy. I mean, the myth of the fact is that we have piles and piles of work. I feel if people have piles and piles of work, there is something wrong with them. Because if you look at it, there are multinational companies who are making billions, and they work 5 days a week. And there are certain parts of the world where they have even come back to a 4 days week. How is it that even 7 days are not enough for you? And you say there is a lot of work. Somewhere there is an organizational deficit. Either you're not a good time manager or you're not a good task manager. That's what I personally feel. So in Sunbeam, yes, we are engaged, but we don't have pending work. To be enthusiastically engaged in your work is a different thing. But to are constantly running behind deadlines and all, no, it's a well-oiled machinery at every level. You have very sensible and very hard-working people, also very smart-working people. So no, office work does get over. It does get over, And what I love to do after that is 3 things with equal fervor. So it's music, it's books, and it's cooking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I read voraciously. I love listening to music of all genres, and I definitely love my time in the kitchen.
Now I'm going to add one of my questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Since I am an adult reader, I like to read books. What's your favorite book, ma'am?
Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, and Mrityunjay by Shivaji Samant. So I read in Hindi, English, Marathi. So in all three languages. So Shivaji Samant, if you read Mrityunjay, which was written in Marathi, it is brilliant. One of the best books that I have ever read. And Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. It's always on my bedside, and I do read it very often. I keep on reading excerpts from it again and again.
Okay, I won't read it.
You must.
So ma'am, now coming back to you.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
Pratima.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's removing the time of assistant director for now. Okay. If you had to name a book having your whole life story, okay, what would you what would its title be? Like, if you had to give a title to that book.
Being me. Being me.
Being me. Okay.
Being me.
That's interesting. Okay. And ma'am, you work throughout the day and you are engaged in multiple activities. For example, you had to come to Varuna today for this podcast and everything. How do you manage your home and school at the same time?
You have to create pockets of what is a can do, what is a will do, what is a must do. And you have to prioritize what is important, what is not important but not really significant and urgent. And you compartmentalize your life, and over the years you develop your own system of mental filing as to this has to be done. So I will not lose out on important people in my life. I will not lose out on my time with children at any cost. At any cost. So very honestly, in today's schedule, it's not as if because we are doing a podcast, but it is because it's an opportunity to talk to kids again. And I'm more curious about the kind of questions which will come from you to me rather than how will I answer your questions, you know. So there are certain very, very important priorities. I will not miss out on time with any person who needs me, you know, my teachers, my support staff, people in the family. I will not. So for me, people come first. Doing a task well comes second. Who is doing the task is very important to me. How are they doing it is sorted if I know who is doing it and what frame of mind they are in. So that is how I've maintained my cliched work-life balance, prioritizing that which is important to me and not that which is important to others. Good Lord, if you are always working to do that which is important to others, you, I feel, are on a one-way street to, you know, a personal disaster. Because somewhere along the way, you are going to lose touch with your own self and you're going to say, God, what do I do for myself? So I prioritize. I do prioritize. And that's how over the years it has fallen into place. Not always. There have been moments of great regret, great, sadness where I have lost out on things, I've lost out on people, I've lost out on big moments. But yes, the understanding is that one doesn't have to compensate, but one has to create another moment of equal significance.
Okay. Ma'am, just asking it out of curiosity, was there any moment of yours with a student which was very funny and you remember it?
Very many moments where students are such an integral part. They have been such an integral part of my life. The funniest moments is when there are scores of them when they have done something and they are confabulating furiously to come out of it, you know. And I listen to it patiently and then I say, you know what, I don't believe a word of it. Now let's talk honestly. You should say that. What? Why would you say that? I said, because you have been lying at a breakneck speed. Now let's get to the truth of the matter. Believe me, I'm not going to judge you, no. And that's quite funny. So I then developed a sort of a relationship with those chronic mischief makers, you know. And it was so cute that they would do something and they would open the door to my office and say, okay, fine, we need to talk about this. Something has happened. And you know, it is so cute when kids do that, you know. So in a funny manner, I love it when honestly pops up through all that elaborately constructed facade. Yeah, that's a very gratifying moment.
You have that is good. Ma'am, going forward and coming to the end of the podcast, ma'am, how do you see Sunbeam up to 20 years or 50 years from now?
Okay, honest answer. We 20 years from now would definitely be a more settled place. As in, right now we are in a position of still getting, I would not say developing, it is more of consolidation now, but we still, you know, being in the place that we are. And I suppose the ecosystem around us, the social ecosystem, the professional ecosystem around us, will, in Varanasi particularly, is also going to have an upward growth curve, and it will be massively accelerated. So I think mindsets of people around us will also change. The professionals who are coming and being with us in the next 20 years will come with a different mindset, and that will lead to us being very settled. Right now, you know, our quest is to get the best of the world to come to us. I feel 20 years later, having garnered the best with us, we will be evolving our own ethos. And that is the hallmark of any organization where you are eager to learn, you have learned, but you have done the synthesis of every good practice that you have been exposed to, and that amalgamation has given rise to your own ethos and your own culture. So that way we will be more settled. We will not be, scurrying back and forth to see that we are not left behind, because at times we do feel that we are not getting an expose to the whatever else is happening in the world. But Varanasi, the way it is developing, the country as a whole, the way it is going forward, I am sure we will be a very settled and a very, very in equilibrium organization 20 years from now.
That was very good. Listen, ma'am. Again, ma'am, any final message which you would like to give to the students?
Other message that I would want to give to the students is that, to repeat an oft-quoted cliche, do not judge a book by its cover. There is a story, there is a journey behind every successful phase. What the person appears today is not the person who was always what he or she is today. Do not judge a person by their success, and do not feel that they never had any hardships or they have not encountered anything which you are going through at the moment. So take examples from people's life, but do not feel that it is all a party. It never is. There is a lot of drudgery to be done. There is a lot of boring grunt work, cut work to be done before you can see the spoils of success, So don't be scared to work hard. Don't be scared to take risks in life. And above all, do not ever settle to be a photocopy of someone else. You have to be your original self, flawed, imperfect, tall, thin, fair, dark, conventionally beautiful or terribly ugly according to the norms and silly standards. Do not get carried away by that. Look at yourself honestly in the mirror and celebrate the person you see there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving us your time and being on the podcast. And we would like to have you again for another one, but absolutely not this season of it, another.
I look forward to it, and thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.